Good morning, folks. I'm Jeff Underwood. Welcome to Kapow. Always Jerry White doing what he does, and he's lost a lot of weight.
It's been a tough day.
We don't want to share that diet. That's an unapproved diet.
It is. You don't want no part of that.
You don't want a part of that
It's
diet.
not Mack Butler approved.
It's not catching. That diet is not catching. And Mack obviously is always slim and trim. He don't need to lose any weight. Who's your friend today?
Blessed and highly favored. We're here with Mr. Mack Butler. Thank you so much for taking time to be with us. And
Great to be with the cool kids today.
Hey, sometimes
you say cool kids and Siri started looking.
It said Mack Butler, cool kid. How awesome is it to be with somebody that's a man of their word?
I know that's right.
And I know you have. It's a big day for you. You're gonna make some announcements.
Yes, sir.
I'm from all my sources. I'm hearing that you're actually going to be the next head coach at Etowah High School.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, sir.
There it is, folks.
Jeff you thought you were getting away with something.
Thanks for joining us.
Mack, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you guys for having me.
We'd take Mack.
I would take Mack as the head coach. Absolutely would take Mack. So tell us what's going on in the world of Mack Butler. I know you got something pretty special coming up tonight here in Rainbow City. He's always disrupting, isn't he?
We do, which this will be the 8th year we've done this. And to go back, Rainbow City, for as long as I can remember, has had some incredible Christmas decorations, and we had it was a flat Stanley manger scene out there, and it's since been moved across the street.
Right.
But 8 years ago, the Freedom from Religion Foundation from Wisconsin was greatly offended by such and sent a letter to the city. And
because they drove by it all the time.
Yeah, apparently.
Right.
And the city took it down. So anyway, we got together, several of us, and we started a night at the Nativity, and we turned it into a live Nativity. And it was funny as we fought back and forth. If you remember 8 years ago and then again the next year, a lot of correspondence back and forth between myself and the Freedom from Religion Foundation with attorneys. And they were demanding all kinds of paperwork and communications, text messages, emails, wanted copies of my permit where the city allowed me to do this, and I responded that we didn't ask for permission. If you'll read the First Amendment, it says Congress should make no law respecting the establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, and it also goes into the freedom of the press. And then the next thing is the right of the people to peacefully assemble. So that was my response: is we didn't ask anybody. We, the people, are going to peacefully assemble at our town square. And it's interesting because the first 150 years of this nation were quite different than it is today. It was very common to find such expression, at all your governmental buildings back in the day. Yeah. But, in 1870, Representative Burton sponsored a federal law to make Christmas a national holiday. And the purpose was to celebrate the birth of Christ. Well, and an interesting side note, because I love Alabama, but do you know the very first state to officially recognize Christmas?
Tijuana.
Alabama. Roll Tide. But Alabama in 1836 was the very first state to recognize that as an official state holiday. But anyway, so since then, we the people have been peacefully assembling at our town square and exercising our constitutional right. And anyway, how many chances do you get to actually see a real live camel and take a selfie with a camel? But we'll have camel, sheep, donkey, and we're going to have the Joyful Juniors performing music for us. Pastor Mark Gidley from Faith Worship Center will read the Christmas story from the New Testament.
Oh, it's going to get read.
But it'll be, he's got that beautiful booming voice. But it will be a short and sweet, usually last about an hour, and a lot of people come and go. It's just a fellowship time, and with some incredible music by the Joyful Juniors. But would love everyone to come tonight, 6 p.m. Looking at the forecast, the weather's going to be perfect tonight.
Be beautiful. Yeah. So you may get a hiccup with Pastor Mark in there. You may get to preaching his giddy up. You know how he is. You can't take that preacher nowhere.
And he's going to go Old Testament at some point.
Absolutely.
That's the way it is. Hey, City of Atala did a great thing too. They copied, that's what good coaches do, right? You take something you like to put. During the Christmas parade, they had a live nativity, so good for them. And I kept looking for you, but you may have been the shepherd.
Yeah, he was hiding. He was incognito. Yeah, you was disguised at the cabin.
Well, it's funny. There's the courts have ruled that you can have such at your city hall or wherever at your governmental building, but they want, what the courts are looking for is a plurality. If you've got the manger scene, they want to see a reindeer, a snowman, because they've secularized Christmas. But that's fine. But honestly, the real purpose of the federal holiday was to celebrate the birth of Christ.
Amen.
Yeah.
And we get away from that. This nation, without a shadow of a doubt, was founded by the church. If you read the Mayflower Compact, every man could not get off the boat till they signed it. Mm-hmm. And it says they came in the name of Christ for the discipleship of Christ. And that inspired the Declaration of Independence, which has four references to God. It inspired the Constitution, which is based on biblical principles. But if you look at all the things our founders did, the very first official act of Congress in 1774 was a 2-hour prayer service. That's the first official act. And you look, they instilled Christian morality in the armed forces. They sponsored the printing of Bibles. That's a fact. In 1800, the Congress, by vote, for the U.S. Capitol be used as a church, largest church in the nation. Every president from Jefferson to Lincoln attended church at the U.S. Capitol. It was about a 70-year period. 2,000 people a week attended there. The Ten Commandments is still all over D.C. Scriptures everywhere. But we've gotten so far from that. But that is the reality. And if you look at our 3 branches of government, most people, they've forgotten their governmental class from high school, but we have a thing called the separation of powers. Mm-hmm. Only the legislature can make laws. And one thing that's leading me again to do something that I've done before is I watched as our nation, we allowed executive edicts, which are not law, to change our life. And literally, the First Amendment says, Congress shall make no law respecting establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof. And then it goes into the press, and then it talks about peaceful assembly. The peaceful assembly. We allowed executive edicts, which do not have the weight of law. Only the legislature can make law. But we allowed them to close our churches during COVID. Some of these things were probably smart, some were not. But it's up to us individually. Only you have the right to decide what's essential to you may not be essential to me. Yeah, and you have that right. Nobody else can pick it for you. But, it is 100% unlawful for a law enforcement officer to enforce an unlawful order. Mm-hmm. The mask mandate here in the state of Alabama was a suggestion.
Correct.
Was not a law, but around the state, we had people arrested all over for it.
That's right.
A law did not exist. That was an unlawful order. But where was the legislature in this? The legislature trumps the other 2 branches. It's the only branch that can impeach the other 2 branches. I explain this to people all the time, and most people have never heard this. I was in the debate with a professor in 2015 at the University of Alabama Law. It was honors college. These are law students, auditorium full of them. And we got to a point, and I asked how many learned we have 3 equal but separate branches of government. Because you hear that a lot, that term. Fox News, your senator say it. Every hand in the place goes up, and I back up and I go, whoa, man, you guys really need to read the Constitution, or at least read Federalist 45, which explains it. By design, the founders created the courts a bit weaker and the legislative branch closest to the people a bit stronger. And I said, think about it, guys. Your courts have no monies and no armies. Your executive branch only has a sword, but the legislative branch has the power of the purse. It's the only branch that can legislate all by itself. It's the only branch that can impeach the other 2 branches. It's the only branch that can declare war and raise taxes, and you would call these equal? The professor I'm debating goes, guys, he's actually right on this. But we need to know that. And with all that's gone on in the pandemic, did we have anybody stand up and go, no? Our governor had 60 days of emergency authority. When it got to the 61st day and the 120th day, 150th day, she didn't let it up. Where was our legislature in this? Well, I thought surely there would be some legislation tying her hands. Some of these things were good suggestions. They were not law, but we had law enforcement officers enforcing them as laws. A little dirty secret because there are some horrible things that go on, and I'm just funny about the Constitution. I think we should follow it. I think we should follow the separation of powers, but you see things all over where someone gets arrested. And I'm going to put up a couple examples, and these are probably not great examples, but there was one in Fort Payne a couple years ago where a student had a gun in his car, and he was arrested in the parking lot. Well, first of all, if he had a permit for a handgun, or if it was a long gun, it was not a violation of criminal law. It was a violation of school board policy. I was a school board guy for 10 years, and believe me, we dealt with stuff like that.
Sure.
And that's what you do. But we don't want kids bringing guns to school, obviously, but, it used to, like when I was in high school and I graduated in 1981 Gadsden High, it wasn't that uncommon for a kid to have a shotgun or something in their car.
Sure.
They weren't shooting up the schools, but it kind of was, especially in the rural areas. But, there was any intent to do anything. But anyway, that situations happened over and over and over where they did not violate criminal law. They violated, like, policy.
Right.
But the courts have gone in and go through it and convict people, and I could show you all kinds of examples to dig into. But anyway, just follow the law.
Yeah.
It's simple. Just follow the law.
Well, we've got a lot of folks jumping on, and so we're going to go ahead and put your questions on here. Anything you would like to ask Mack that we deem appropriate, we'll ask. There's a lot of times we have people on that we don't ask anything.
They can be brutal.
It can be brutal.
But sometimes honest.
Oh,
They're very
right.
honest questions.
Sure. Well, especially a couple of guests we've had on would be pretty honest. You don't have to worry at all. So there's a little bit of news out there. There's been quite a bit of buzz if you watch Mack Butler's social media page.
And who doesn't?
And a lot of people do. You see a lot of little teasers here and there. Something big's happening. Things are coming. Big news coming. Is there anything that you would like to share with the folks of the state of Alabama that are watching?
Well, absolutely. And first of all, on a local front, Connie and I, my lovely bride of 37 years, we have been involved in this rendering plant. I mean, they're trying to put it right here in our backyard.
Right.
Yeah. What Gadsden's doing proves they're not a good neighbor. We want to help them become a good neighbor. Mm-hmm. And it's not too late. They can stop it now. But this rendering plant fight, Connie and I have been involved in. We're part of the lawsuit that 20-something people are in, and now more people are jumping in. So proud to see my city, Southside, and the county commission jump in opposing it, which is a huge rebuke. But Connie and I have spent tons of money in this fight, and we think we're going to be victorious. But honestly, this thing could have been handled easily with some local legislation, and I had shouted that from the rooftops. We could have done a local bill. First of all, who in their right mind would put something at an airport that does not complement aviation, that attracts wildlife and turkey buzzards? That's insane. And I wonder if Gadsden's really trying to kill the airport, which literally would kill industry, because industry needs an airport. We need an airport. Mm-hmm. But the whole thing has been wrong. But back to some local legislation, a simple piece. You could have done a proximity bill where you couldn't have a rendering plant in a certain proximity to an airport, a school, a church, a neighborhood. We could have taken care of that. That really made me wish I was back in Montgomery, because I was very successful as a legislator, and I had lots of success with some very historic legislation. I fought everything from making school prayer legal in Alabama again to fighting human trafficking, which is like a $34 billion a year trade.
Unbelievable.
And I was amazed in doing research how involved it is right here in Alabama. And with some of our corridors, 59 and 20, that are just corridors for human trafficking. But we need an effective legislator, and I have been anguishing over where, I always say, because my last name's Butler, we're meant to serve. When the Butlers came from Ireland, they were indentured servants. And I feel like I've served my entire life, and we need to serve. I started my career at 11 years old. Genesis 3:19 says, "By the sweat of your brow, so shall you eat all the days of your life." I was a paper boy 3 years, learned a great life lesson there. But I need to be working, doing something, and I've been anguishing. People everywhere I would go would ask me to get back in the legislature, and I really thought I was going to run for the state senate. And we've been working data collection and polling, but for months our legislature has intentionally delayed the redistricting, and it's gerrymandered, and so we finally get all that. And as we're going between the two, a number of things happen, which I shared with y'all, I won't go into, but basically that I felt like doors were opened here and there. And just recently at our Republican meeting, we have a good man, a local insurance guy. He's been my insurance guy before, that kind of floored me. He stood up and announced he's running for state senate. Yeah. And I'm going to be supporting that gentleman. If we had two from the same county, it would dilute the vote, split it. And we honestly need Etowah County needs to hold that Senate seat. So that was another door that opened. And then with other things that have happened this week, and literally when I text you Sunday night, Jerry, we had come to peace with the decision. And so I'm going to be a candidate for House District 28 in the Alabama legislature. As Lieutenant Governor called me a couple of weeks ago, as I'm anguishing this decision, I was telling him between the two, and he's right. He said, Mac, you can be just as effective in the House as you can the Senate, and we need conservatives back in Montgomery.
Amen.
Montgomery has been overrun with moderates and a lot of Democrats with R's by their name. It's a different world down there than when I was there, because we had a good handful of staunch conservatives, evangelical conservatives. The gas tax that they passed is nothing new. I fought two governors on that. Now, the Senate, did pass it, but in the House, just a small coalition of conservative legislators kept it from even being able to come to the floor for a vote. And the reason why $62 million of existing gas tax revenue is funding other state agencies, has been for ages. And and even when they pass this, everybody runs for office and says, elect me, I'm going to be your voice in Montgomery, be your representative. And we know the polling on the gas tax, the people of this state were 80% opposed to it. But the very first vote our newly elected legislators did was to raise your gas tax, and they did something unconstitutional as well. They passed an automatic tax increase called indexing that's continually run loose. We need to repeal that. We need to do what the people want. If you look, the tax revenues in the state of Alabama have soared, and they've spent every penny of it. You don't do that. But the real reason is most of these guys are working for special interests, because special interest is working to separate you from your dollars. And so many times it's not stuff you agree with. So we just need conservatives to get back down there that would work for the people and not the special interests.
Hey, well, thank you again for being the man of your word. And you said, hey, when I decide
Absolutely.
I'm coming on your show to do it, and the Back Max has begun here.
Yes, sir.
Throwing it out.
Our press release will go out about lunch today.
And hey, go ahead and put your questions in for Mac. And Reba Stanley's on here, and she said they have been heavily involved from the start against the fight
She
for the
has.
plant.
Her and her husband have been incredible.
Well, she's saying that
She's
you
talking about
guys.
you guys.
Oh,
You
yes.
guys
Well,
have
we
done that from the
have.
start.
Well, we live in Rainbow City. Connie and I moved here as newlyweds, new in business, and Connie and I own a lot of property in Etowah County, something we've been good at. And if you watch my Facebook, I say we're always improving our community one project at a time, but we absolutely are investing in our community and improving property, but we own a lot of property in Rainbow City. If you watch on Facebook, my precious wife is Connie, and I call everything Connie's, but we bought some river property right up here, and I call it Connie's Landing.
It's beautiful.
And a lot of
All the
people know about
improvements.
Connie's Landing,
Yeah.
but this last week we bought more acres and more water frontage and the woods around it for Connie's Landing, because Miss Connie wants to build a house. But if that rendering plant comes, that would be horrific. But we got this beautiful piece of property that looks like you're out in the middle of nowhere, and we do not need a rendering plant there.
Yeah.
But, a lot of politicians talk about, we will send me to Montgomery, I'm going to create jobs, or I'm going to do this. Most of them have never created a job. I'm one of the few who can literally tell you from 22 years of age when I went into business as a newlywed that I have created jobs. And people say I recruit business. Most of them wouldn't know how to recruit a business. I'm not picking on them, but Mack Butler has picked up the phone, called a CEO, and recruited them to our area and brought multi-million-dollar businesses, many of them all over, that we've brought. We started Butler Properties over 20 years ago, and I started a couple of years ago actually sharing on Facebook what we've been doing for 20 years with real estate, because we go in, Connie has an incredible eye for design. We're kind of like the Chip and Joanne of Rainbow City, and I kind of make happen what Connie sees. But we knock down walls and change colors, and sometimes I'm like, but it looks amazing when we get done. But we're trying to provide quality, affordable housing and commercial properties. We started out with commercial properties, but I literally, have multiple times brought businesses in. There was one business that I called the CEO in Boca Raton and talked to him and sold him on the idea, and he sent people up to look at it, and sure enough, they moved in and brought revenue to our state. They're still there. They're almost to their 10-year mark on that. There's one major business in Rainbow City we brought here in 2000. They're still here going strong. They're much bigger than they were then. But, not a lot of people have never had that experience and done it, but we do it all the time.
Yeah.
And we bring it. And it's funny, I talk about when we built the Dollar General on Knockalittle Mountain.
Yeah.
We still own that one. Followed all the rules, did everything you're supposed to do, hired an architect, had plans, and we actually were in a contract with this, multi-billion-dollar company to get the store ready by this date. The city of Gadsden passed a construction moratorium and tried to shut us down. I mean, how wrong for a little guy for a city to do that?
Wow.
The only way I beat them is because I'm an electrical contractor. I had literally bought an electrical permit and put a temporary power pole on the ground to get our temporary power, and that had started an irrevocable process. So they had the construction moratorium, but they had to let us move right along. That business has brought in hundreds of thousands of dollars now at 20 years for city, county, and state revenue. But why would they oppose it? And it's so wrong after we had followed all the rules, the zoning, everything was right, to just up and come because they didn't want it.
Yeah, anytime you go by that Dollar General, it is packed.
It is packed.
It's packed. And they needed that up there. I mean, you got people that back on the backside almost to line up on another county, and they can't go anywhere unless they drop off that mountain to go. And I don't understand.
Well, I'm a firm believer that again, this is getting off on a rabbit trail here, that we should be developing more of Knockalittle Mountain.
Knockalittle, because I talk about Etowah County is just incredible. We've got a river that runs through the middle that we do nothing with. Now, we know about it, but it really ought to be like a Chattanooga. Chattanooga reinvented themselves, became a gig city, but we have Knockalittle Falls. There honestly ought to be a corridor from 59 to Knockalittle Falls. There ought to be a Marriott up there, Robert Trent Jones Golf Course, zip lines through the gorge. But if you look at Stone Mountain, Georgia, if you've ever been there, Stone Mountain, Georgia was kind of like Knockalittle Falls. It was a drain on the city's budget. They turned it over to a private company that took it from here to here. And now if you tried to book to go over there, you're going to be on a long wait because it is a destination. Knockalittle Falls could be an incredible destination. We're so blessed with that natural beauty. Now, and the city has done a few things right. They've built some cabins up there that are on overnight rentals that are incredible. The campground's incredible. But there was a study done years ago that showed visitation to the falls is extremely high from traffic off of 59. But they stayed an average of like 15 minutes, spent $0 because you need some things there for them. I could see the Knockalittle Falls and the corridor up there being like a Helen, Georgia or somewhere and be a destination. But we need leaders with vision. We definitely, Gadsden used to be larger than Huntsville. Most people are shocked when I tell them that. The population's now about 34,000. It used to be over 70,000. When I was 11, I delivered papers downtown Gadsden. It was a different place. It was such a hustle and bustle. I can remember being a teenager driving down Megan Boulevard and seeing Walter Mondale and the vice presidential motorcade going down Megan. But I mean, we used to get those visits in Gadsden. We need to get back on the map. We just need to be creative in our thinking and develop, and not things like the rendering plant. They didn't even consult with anybody. If it had not been for David Chadwick and Trent Thrasher and a few others that kind of found this and brought it to everyone, this thing probably would have already been up and running. And that's not what we need. We need jobs. But those jobs would be forever just turnover. But we do not want that here. You definitely don't want it at your airport. I mean, I don't understand the thinking. Think, hey, let's put it at the airport, something that'll attract turkey buzzards. But we need some honest to goodness, true leaders that can think outside the box. We need a variety of all walks of life, but we need business people as well that have been successful and done some things. But Gadsden, really, I think it's at a crossroads. And I think this next election, we're going to see a lot of people get rejected and bring on some some new thinkers, bring some fresh ideas, but because Gadsden can really become the Chattanooga. If you've been lately,
Absolutely.
it's incredible. Because this is our hometown. We love it. We're invested here, and I would say the Butler family is far more invested than most. We pump money into all over Etowah County to bring. If you look at and y'all probably kept up with our progress. Connie and I found 2 homes behind City Hall. They're both about 100 years old.
Beautiful.
Yep.
They had been vacant for years.
Yeah.
And we bought both of those and spent about a year restoring those, and they're incredible. They're 100 years old, but they're like brand new homes.
Yeah.
And we take so much pride. People always want to buy stuff, but we don't want to sell anything. We put too much blood, sweat, and tears in it. I mean, because you get connected to the property, but we take such pride with restoring our community. And I love, that people literally will fight over our properties. That we usually can rent one in just a minute.
He doesn't mean fist fight, although it's been
That's right.
close.
It's been close.
A couple times.
Yeah.
It's been close. One thing that I love about Mack Butler, and we're big fans. We love you, and we pray for you, and you do a lot for us, and we do appreciate it. But one thing we love about you is local interest. You care about, and obviously with just now you're talk. It's all local. What? And I think a lot of people get lost when they go to the House, or they go to the legislature, or they go to the Senate. They get lost, or especially when they go to Washington. They forget where they're from and who they're there fighting for.
Well, there's such intense pressure from special interest.
Right.
I mean, they're whining and dining you continually. And people that know me know that when I was in Montgomery, I rarely attended the receptions. And if I knew you guys were going to be there, somebody home, I would go see you.
Yeah.
But usually those things you get tied at for a couple of hours. I could be home in 2 hours. I drove back and forth almost every single day. Now, Connie thought I was insane.
Well, you are.
But I literally could be home in 2 hours, and I would just drive back and forth. I would start in the morning with my call list, and it's almost scary sometimes that it's like you're on autopilot, and I would just pull up, at the State House, and I'm all of a sudden there. It's like, how did I get here? But I would start with my call list, and it was kind of productive time. Now, so many times I got home, midnight, 2 in the morning. I couldn't call people, obviously, then, but I just didn't get all tied up in all that, because there's all kinds of tales, and there's a lot. You hear things that lobbyists back in the day would do for people, even female companionship they would send to your room. Believe me, I don't need to get tied up in any of that.
Yeah.
The only female companion I need is named Connie, and she lives right here in Rainbow
Amen.
City.
Yes.
Hey, well, I think that there's a lot of things in the political arena that experience matters, right? So
Absolutely.
someone with experience who knows how to navigate the system and can see the traps coming before they get there. That's very important for us.
It is, and we need someone that's not afraid of a fight, that'll stand up. My biggest fights were, of course, I'm an evangelical Republican. I believe in our Republican Party, the Republican platform. We are pro-life. I had to remind my caucus that sometimes, because everybody claims to be pro-life, but we're not doing. Did you see any pro-life legislation last session?
Nope.
Did you see any pro-gun legislation?
Nope.
We literally in the state of Alabama and a lot of states are paying for a right. Can you tell me what John Adams and John Hancock and Sam Adams would think about you paying for a right to protect yourself? Okay.
Unbelievable.
And can you imagine when? The response on all this, we have got and a lot of people, it gets deep, but only your states have police power. The feds don't have it. Regardless how you feel about the vaccine, that's a private matter between you and your doctor. But we have got Joe Biden trying to fire people.
Correct.
First it went from just 2 weeks flatten the curve that we know now was the exact opposite thing to do. They literally destroyed business. KIV destroyed businesses and lives, the mental anguish, the anxiety that people dealt with because you're terrified. We're being told this thing's climbing everywhere. It's going to get you. Yeah. But they did stuff so wrong in forcing you to stay home. The U.S. Constitution guarantees you the right to travel. It is in there in black and white. A lot of people don't know that, but that is a foundational liberty. But basically, the feds cannot mandate anything because they do not have police powers. The states could.
Yeah.
But we need people in the state legislature that understand this. We need legislators that will go to the front and fight. I did something, I did a resolution, after I did the school prayer bill, which they told me was going to have all these constitutional issues. It's had zero. There has not been a single legal challenge to it. It's been over 6 years. But I did one called an academic freedom resolution. Because we teach evolution in the 5th grade, which is a scientific theory.
Yeah, sure.
It literally allowed, and it said to develop critical thinking skills, it would encourage the student and teacher to analyze, critique, and evaluate all scientific theories that the student wants to discuss. And it gave license to the teacher to discuss anything Susie or Johnny wanted to talk about. Yeah. That got me death threats. I got attacked from all the way from the left coast to AL.com right here for being anti-science. Well, I thought, critiquing, analyzing, evaluating, let the chips fall where they may. I thought that was science. It's like right now you can't question anything against Dr. Fauci.
Oh, please. Dr.
If he says, something you cannot, they will literally shut you down on Facebook. You have to put the C word. You can't say COVID because they'll shut you down on stuff that we're being lied to on so many things. He'll admit he lies.
He said science matters, but not in this part.
Yeah.
He literally has told us, we look at science, but not here.
And these are the same people that tell you to follow the science, that tell you that a man is a woman, or that you can just choose your gender. And you're seeing this in sports now, which is one of the dumbest things. If you take biology, there's an X and a Y chromosome. Men have more muscle mass. There is a difference.
Yes.
But they're telling us to follow the science. But if Johnny pretends he's Susie, we're supposed to pretend with him. I'm sorry, that's not right, and that's not fair to a child.
It's not. The definition of science is take something, study it, break it down, and put it back together.
Analyze, critique, and evaluate.
That's exactly right.
Same thing I got death threats for.
That's exactly right. And that bill, and matter of fact, we were so fired up about it. It's Bill Alabama HIR 78, and that is a bill that is absolutely 100% needed to be in our school systems, where if a kid says, hey, my parents are Hindus.
Sure.
Well, if that teacher should ever be learning. My wife's in education. Mm-hmm. We all love education. You were a school board member. You're heavily involved in Tallahassee City school systems. And we should want our teachers to study that, figure it out, and talk about it to them if that's what they want to talk about. If they want to talk about creation, they should be able to do that. And I think that's wonderful to have somebody that is at the law house, at the state house, that's making these types of laws to ensure our freedoms. It's trickling down with this COVID travel mandates that is happening, laws that they're passing. Canada, right to our north, our good neighbor Canada, now is enforcing those very things, travel mandates, that you've got to show proof of vaccination. In New York City, and parts of New York State, their unelected governor now is telling them that they're going to have to require masks in any indoor business except the businesses that require checking for COVID vaccination proof.
It's just true insanity, and who would ever thought, they basically were telling us not to touch each other, and we know how important touch is. A newborn baby needs to be held, preemies need to be held, but if you study human touch, it lowers blood pressure, increases all the good stuff, decreases the bad stuff. Mm-hmm. It's so important. It's the way God created us that we need touch. My mother was very sick and actually passed during COVID, and they literally would not let us see her, and it was devastating. But the isolation that so many people have experienced, we need human interaction. That's right. And sure, you need to be smart with the protocols if you're at high risk and all this, but we learn now they lied to us so much. They had an agenda, and we could get off in a whole other tangent. Sure. Why I think some of this, because the virus is very real. We had it.
Sure. Yeah.
Something they don't. They talk about it in Israel, especially. They've done some incredible studies on natural immunity, but they don't want to talk about it here. Just want to force vaccine, and it was 1, 2, 3, and that's 4. It's going. Where's this going to end at some point? We just needs some reasonable, honest people that we're listening to, and that's why I think it's a personal decision between you and your doctor.
Sure.
If you get it, the vaccines absolutely are helping. It initiates an immune response similar to what your body does naturally. I am proof that I have been around so many people that had COVID that I didn't know at the time after I recovered from it, and I never skipped a beat. But so the natural immunity, I can guarantee you is 100%. I had 2 employees that got it. One of them was hospitalized. They were very sick. But I had been working just right next to them for days when they went out with it. And thankfully, I did have natural immunity. Thus far, I have not taken the vaccine, but I haven't felt the need to it because I've been getting my antibodies checked.
Right.
I might, down the road, I have no problem with it. I really have a problem with someone telling me I've got to do it. And it's still in the experimental trials.
Exactly right.
If you go to the VAERS website, the CDC does, it stands for Vaccine Adverse Effects Reporting System, it will terrify you.
Yeah.
Hundreds of thousands of adverse effects that they're not telling us about, but the CDC publishes them, and they're on that website.
We found out last night of a young man that's a friend of our family, of my immediate family. Her son is in my age. He's in his 40s, maybe late 40s. Had the vaccination. Now has COVID, and because of that, he has myocarditis. Now, praise God, I have an amazing doctor, an amazing healer. I recovered from that. I mean, my doctor told me the only thing that's going to heal you is either God reverses or a heart transplant. And so, with the enlarging of my heart, but years and years ago, that's a serious condition, especially for somebody that's in their 40s. It's a big deal, and the studies are showing that it's a gene therapy. We if you do any kind of studies, my brother-in-law is a physician. The vaccination is not a vaccination; it's a gene therapy. But getting off that rabbit trail, the whole thing about that is we need people in the state house that's protecting our right. You guys make the laws. Our states have great power, right? And
the legislature in Alabama is particularly powerful.
Yes.
You can't even pass, the counties can't. They don't have home rule.
Right.
And there's a reason for all that. But we need people that understand that and respect it and will work it. We want elected representatives that are accountable to us. It's one of the last things I did. I'm passionate about education and impacting and changing children's lives for the good. Our goal as parents, as educators, is to get our students either college or career ready. And one of the things I got to be part of was when Airbus came to Alabama, we needed 900 welders. We didn't have them. So we passed this legislation, post-secondary dual enrollment for career tech training, where literally you could be in high school and you're dual enrolled like we've been doing for years on the academic trail. But you could go take plumbing, welding, electrical, carpentry, whatever. When you graduate high school, you've already got an associate's degree.
Right.
But that was a beautiful program. But the jobs at Airbus were starting out at $50,000 a pop with benefits. And if you could take someone that's in generational poverty, because generational poverty is a real problem.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
A real problem right here in Alabama.
Yeah.
But if we could break that cycle and get that student that job, you're going to transform his family for generations. You're also going to have a productive tax-paying citizen. And the other thing is, people that are working do not have time to do a drive-by shooting or rob a liquor store. I mean, it really, they talk about an idle mind's the devil's playground, but it really, if I said, Jeff, you want to go rob a liquor store tonight? He goes, well, I got to get up tomorrow morning early to get work. He said, maybe Saturday, but honestly, if we could keep them busy, change them, but break that cycle, and it benefits. If the old saying, if you give a man a fish, you feed him a day. You teach him to fish, you feed him a lifetime. Right. I'm a product of the career tech training. It was called vocational school in my day. Mm-hmm. I could care less about school. I was there for PE and lunch. That was it. But I went to vocational school and loved it. Man, this was great. I played with wires and all this stuff, and I excelled at it. I got a scholarship. But that was just kind of my niche. That I had an incredible vocational school teacher named Johnny Parker, and he had a business on the side, and he hired me and a few other students to work for him. Mentored us, made a difference in my life. And I love to point out the fact that Johnny Parker was black, that took an interest in a skinny white kid. My principal at that school, if y'all know Spencer Williams with Alabama Power, Spencer's a dear friend. His dad, Richard Williams, was the principal at my school.
I knew that.
Incredible man that impacted my life. But Mr. Williams invested in so many of us. But I point out, Richard Williams was black. People try to act like we have this racism problem. We don't. We all love each other.
That's right.
But I had two men that were black that invested in Mack Butler. Johnny Parker and Richard Williams incredibly invested in my life, treated me and that was the reality. They didn't see white kids, black kids.
Right.
They saw students, and they were trying to improve their lives. But they found something and developed in me. Both those guys, Richard Williams used to hire us for all kinds of little electrical projects he would get us to do, and he would pay me like 10 times what it was worth. I mean, he would just invest in me, and because I was like, this is too much. He'd write me a check. Just such a good guy that would invest in people, and I know he actually paid for people to go to college and did a lot of things people don't know about. We've got people all over this town. I've got a dear friend that you guys know that does so much for people, but he don't want anybody to know it. Yeah. But that was like those two gentlemen. Yeah. That invested in others.
A couple more questions, but again,
yes, sir.
Joey Statham right here. Thank you, Joey. Copperleaf Properties for being a sponsor of what we do. He's right there, Mack. He's right there. And he's standing up.
Hey.
Hey, a couple things before, and I want you to really get into the districting in just a second, exactly the areas, and I know they've changed.
Yeah, greatly.
But back to, essential businesses, right? What's essential to me may not be essential to you.
So there's no such thing.
So what in the world? And that's all we heard from you.
And we allowed, in Alabama, our executive to do that. Executive edicts are not law. But we just took it. And where were people, if you followed my Facebook, I was shouting from the rooftops. Mm-hmm. But we've got to have people that stand up and understand there is no such thing. Because what is essential, only you can decide what's essential. What's essential to you, it's not essential to you, and it may not be essential to me. But we allowed in conservative Alabama to shut down our churches. Yeah. But now she kept the abortion clinics open. Yeah. She shut down our churches, kept liquor stores open. Of course, Walmart and Home Depot, those were fine.
Lobbyists, right?
But that is the key. Those that had lobbyists stayed open. The mom and pops, and so many were devastated. I thought the Obama years was the toughest business times we've been through. The COVID years, looking back, I know for us personally, have been tough. Mm-hmm. Every family's been tough. Plus, you add on the mental anguish and anxiety. I can remember at first when coming on watching the news at night, they had us believing that everybody's going to need a ventilator.
Yeah.
And and these are the same people that ignored ivermectin, remdesivir. I mean, they loved remdesivir, but they ignored hydrochloroquine, the monoclonal antibodies, things we knew that work. I lost a brother-in-law to COVID, and I found out they were giving him remdesivir, which kills the kidneys. But so much of that, if they talk about follow the science, why not look at hydrochloroquine? I know people that recovered from that and ivermectin and from the antibodies. But all you kept hearing is vaccine, vaccine, vaccine. And somewhere in the middle is probably the truth, because I think the vaccine is working and positive, but that's not the way, the truth, the life, the only path. Right. From the Israeli studies, which one had 700,000, one had 2.5 million, natural immunity is good. And they touted natural immunity. They even went on to say that if you had natural immunity plus a dose of the vaccine, you were like super immune. Mm-hmm. They weren't opposing it, but they were having a discussion that we weren't having here. But so much of what happened to us during COVID was a 100% violation of our constitutional rights. Yeah. And we had no one championing that cause from our state house. In Vegas, it was funny. It was so blatant. They kept the casinos open, but churches were closed. Right. And one church, actually moved the church to the casino, so they could hold church. And that was, innovative, but actually that's the wrong method. They need to go back. We have the First Amendment because they never could have ratified the Constitution without those guarantees. Those are foundational liberties. Where were the people standing up? It's like, I put on Facebook about the vaccine mandate that it's 100% of Constitution. I put a lot of stuff on there and said, I guarantee the courts as it gets there will happen. And I was 100% right, because it's falling because the feds don't have police power, only the states. And that was far too broad. It was bogus what they did with OSHA. That was not, at all in their scope. In the Fifth Circuit first, they cited grave constitutional and statutory concerns, which, to tell you to inject something, because there's no telling what they could come up with next. These people that are in charge right now in the Biden administration have an agenda. Kind of jumping ship with you, you know, when Donald Trump came to Alabama here recently in Coleman, Connie and I were part of that and helped that happen. It took, it takes hundreds of thousands of dollars to put an event on like that. The state party did it.
Sure.
When you go there, if you look around, you got to have stage, you got to have security, you got to have a venue, you got to have porta potties, and all things cost a lot of money. We're part of that, but I was actually elected by you guys in 2016 and 2020 as a Trump delegate, and because of that, I absolutely helped Trump secure the nomination twice. And just want to throw that in there that Mack Butler is a pro-Trump conservative evangelical Republican.
Your son was a delegate as well, right?
He was an alternate delegate.
Yeah, that's
right.
still, man, that's
That
incredible.
is huge. Yeah, he was probably the youngest one.
Yeah.
I think that's awesome.
And on a side note, you know that church that had to move into
The casino.
Mm-hmm. My understanding is that tithing did go up.
Come on, man.
I don't know.
That's right.
Come on.
Yeah.
One
Put
thing
it on
that-
black and spin the wheel.
That's well.
God, I love
Moving along. One thing I think.
Well, I'm not sure Patron is a dose.
Hey.
But it should be.
Good
Sorry,
grief.
just reading that.
That must be one of your friends, because that's all you talk about. One thing I think that people need to understand big time is we need protection, right? The federal government is overreaching constantly, and not just with the COVID protocols and the mandates and all of this trash that these people are handing
And your
out.
state house, your state legislature is absolutely your last line of defense from the executive edicts.
Correct.
From our state, from our own executive, and from the federal. You know, normally we think of. I've always really mainly feared federal overreach, but watching what happened during COVID, I now fear, you know, what Kay Ivey, some of the things she did.
Well, we sat there. One of the things that we talked about during this whole thing when it started, it amazed me how Alabamians would. The governor is going to speak with the health expert, and everybody would get around the table. Everybody get around their phones to see what she's going to say. Is she going to let us out? And I, for the life of me, could not believe we're waiting on this woman to tell us what we can and cannot do in a constitutional republic that guarantees us the right to travel, the right to free speech, and then if those don't work out, we got the second one, and to guarantee that the first one works
and
out.
she only had 60 days of emergency authority, but she ran loose with it. And when it went past that, she didn't let up. In our legislature, I had people calling me, you know, that were constitutional, liberty-minded like I am, that were saying, why don't they call themselves in sessions? And I had a lady call me that said, well, I talked to my legislature, and they said they can't do that. And I said, baloney. The legislature can call themselves in session for the purpose of impeachment.
Correct.
And I guarantee if they would call themselves in session, she would get religion real quick and respect your rights. But they didn't do it.
Well, something said about intestinal fortitude, man.
But they should have had legislation tying her down, limiting her, because, you know, and she's a pretty good person. But she went overboard with it. Can you imagine if we had one that's not? I mean, look at the stuff Joe Biden's doing. We need to have our elected representatives, because what I got off on a tangent a while ago. What I was going to tell you, one of the last things I did, talking about, I got off on the school board, but Gadsden had a lot of drama. They have an incredible school system. We have 3 incredible school systems in Etowah County.
No question.
But Gadsden is an academic powerhouse, merit scholars every year. But they were having lots of drama at the school board because they had an appointed board.
Yeah.
And so with a lot of opposition, you know, I sponsored legislation giving them an accountable board to the people. That way, if you're black, white, rich, poor, you have the same say as this guy that, you know, has a lot.
Correct.
It gave everybody where they worked for you, the people. And anyway, I'm proud of the fact that because I fought and stood through all that mess and caught all kinds of heat from the mayor and council, for most of the council, you know, they didn't want to lose their power on it, but to give that to the people, because I was part of an elected school board and I worked for you. Right. And the beauty of it, because if you have a school board member that's not responsive to you, doesn't like you, doesn't like your kids, he's not going to help you, you can go to all those other ones.
Right.
If they're elected, you know, citywide or countywide, I think that's awesome.
Why would people not like that when we, especially now that shows me, that's years ago. That was 6-7 years ago when you introduced that?
It was about 4 years ago.
4 years ago. So when that went through, now that's foresight, right? Because right now, all over America, what are we seeing? We're seeing school boards run rampant, right? It's telling you can't challenge what we're teaching, critical race
and the
theory,
Justice
whatever.
Department was jumping in.
Correct.
that is a foundational liberty for your right to redress government and peacefully assemble. You can't go in and
if they're not elected,
yes,
they can run
it's so accountable this way because the people can recall you and change you to somebody else. But the people with the appointing power were totally opposed to that.
Correct.
But there was just such drama, and Gadsden, I want it to succeed and be even more of an academic powerhouse. It's a great school system. Atala's a great school system. Etowah County's a great school system because our goal is to get these students, all of them, either college or career ready, to make a difference and become taxpaying citizens.
Jeff, I want you to read a few of these comments. Then we'll get to Mack and talking about what district, how you can vote for Mack and some of your platforms.
Got a lot of people just saying thank you and back Mack, hashtag back Mack is back, by the way.
Good deal.
Your experience is necessary and knowledge is extraordinary, and we know that. Government, you're not lying, Ms. Johnson, because government overreach is extremely dangerous.
And one thing I'm going to tell you, I do not need a job.
Yeah,
I do not. One thing always avoid is a politician that needs a job that doesn't have a career. Man, I have got 2 very full-time jobs. I am blessed to be surrounded by some really incredible people that help me, that allow me to do so many other things. But that's one of the key things is never hire somebody that needs a job.
Right.
And I'm telling you, I do not need a job. Connie used to say sometimes, why in the world do you like this? But I really feel called and get satisfaction from doing that. And I have been just as involved in helping people. A lot of people still think I'm in office because I know resources, so many things I was able to help people that during the pandemic that couldn't get hold of the state because I knew how to get hold of people. But you need people. If you look, what I was talking about, you need people that don't need a job. Busy people are who gets things done.
Yeah. One person said, and I think that's probably what you're alluding to, but because we talk to you, feel like we have the freedom to talk to you about anything, and you'll talk about it.
Sure.
But some things that we talked about to you, other people that we've had on didn't want to talk about, and it's talking about government overreach and those types of things. And one person on here says, "Is there anyone that doesn't like this guy? I'm impressed. He's extremely intelligent and has a backbone." And I think that's something that we don't see. We haven't seen it in a while.
I'm not the least bit scared of a fight, and I'm not scared of saying, "Hey, I'm wrong."
Right.
So, City of Gadsden could do Governor Riley, which I had a close relationship with, but when he got elected, he went in there and did Amendment 1, tried to raise our taxes on everything. I was so opposed to that, so upset with him. But we beat him at the polls on that. That was a referendum.
Yeah.
Governor Riley went, okay, I got the message, loud and clear. We'll go another plan. And he went on. He was able to get reelected and serve a second term, and I think was a very successful governor. Was one of my personal favorites. Gadsden can acknowledge right now with the rendering plant, okay, message received loud and clear. They kept saying 1 or 2 people. I love the billboard they've been doing, with all the people. But now you've got the city of Southside, the city of Rainbow City, all of us that have filed suit, and the county commission rebuking them.
Yeah.
Gadsden just needs to go, okay, message received, this was not a good idea. Buy Pilgrim's Pride.
What's so difficult about a city council, right? Because we know my relation with the mayor there, but the reality is the city council has the ability to stand up and say, we're not even going to vote on it.
Absolutely.
Here's the right.
They're the legislative body, and
that's the way it works in the city of
people
Gadsden,
keep accusing money, this and that. I don't think any money's changed hands, but the appearance of impropriety is there.
Sure.
Because why, in an elected position where you represent the people, most of us don't know a soul that is in favor of this, especially those of us in Atala and Rainbow City right here. We don't want to.
I know one county commission that's in favor of it.
And it's not this one.
It ain't that one.
It's not Joey's data.
Hey, and I appreciate what Southside, Rainbow City,
Absolutely.
and a lot of these cities have passed resolutions opposing it.
Yeah.
Right.
But how much of a rebuke? And it's not anything personal. No. But you, at some point you need to say, recognize it and go, okay. It's just like going back to your wife or your friend or whoever going, man, I was wrong. I'm sorry.
Right.
Jeff,
we can grow and learn from that. There you go.
See, I always put my business.
I think you're being stalked too. So this one person said his name is Carson Butler.
Yeah.
Proud of you as always, Dad. Love you.
Love you, buddy.
That's
Thanks so
special.
much.
How about that? You got
that Carson's our future governor or president or something.
I agree.
That young man is
he really is
so involved and jumps in. on different issues.
I keep
and
waiting
not
for you
afraid.
to bring Cooper with you.
That's
You
right.
do. My favorite Butler is Cooper.
Yeah. Cooper is
Fed him-
special.
fed him well.
Connie would get rid of me long before she would Cooper.
Oh my goodness. Well, that's true.
I'll
Kelly
drink to
has
that.
that. Yeah, Kelly has that same mentality
She
when it
does with
comes to
Maggie.
her little four-legged family member there.
I get it.
That's for sure.
So again, got plenty of time. A few more minutes here. Talk about exactly. Some people may not know what you're running for.
Okay.
And they may not know the areas in which.
We have we have one senator for this area, and we have 3 representatives for this area, 28, 29, and 30, and I was proud to have served 2 terms as state representative for House District 30. They did the redistricting. Far as I can remember, Rainbow City has always been in District 30, was the largest Republican box, largest, in that district. That has been moved in the redistricting into 28, which is Gadsden, Atala, Ivily, Gallant, goes out near Hoax Bluff in there. It doesn't get the mountain, doesn't really get North Gadsden. And we're still studying the maps to learn because it is tweaked and moved. And that happens, reapportionment happens every 10 years. A lot of gerrymandering happens in that time. But basically, previously when I had portions of Etowah and St. Clair, I always had the opinion I worked for everybody because every vote I did impacted the entire state.
Sure.
And we need to be community minded as such and realize nothing impacts just us. If this rendering plant does come, it's going to impact all of us. We've got to have somebody, and I have been there, as soon as we heard about it, I had COVID during that time, and it's funny, we had recovered, and I went to the meeting at Southside, and I figured everybody's going to be terrified to be around me, because we had masks on and all of there, but I wanted to be there for that fight from the very beginning on it. But the area is important where you live, but in every area, I would just encourage people to elect conservatives. And some people don't like, but I'm just going to tell you historical facts. I love history. And it's funny, I wasn't a good student in school, but as an adult, I think I'd be a great student. And I still keep taking classes at the University of Alabama. I'm almost a senior there, but you can kind of jump on, jump off. But there's just so much going on. It's funny, I just lost my train of thought that I was trying to go. Where was I going?
Well, in 10 minutes, I'm going to work.
Are you?
Hey, well, let me ask this.
Yes, sir.
What is one thing? I know there's several things that you have an idea of what you want to do when you go there, but what is one thing if the people elect Mack Butler to House District Seat 28? What is the one thing that you want to go in there, both guns blazing, metaphorically, and try to get done for this?
Well, constitutionally, all the legislature has to do is pass the budgets, and we have 2 budgets.
Right.
But we need to quit spending every penny we have.
There you go.
But the biggest thing that I'm seeing is overrun of our personal liberties. We need to remove pistol permits. You should not pay for a constitutional right. If they want to give you a permit, let them give it to you for free.
Yep.
But the things that are important to me are going to be the things that are important to the people I work for. And where I was going to go a while ago, I was going to tell you. John Jay, our first Chief Justice for the U.S. Supreme Court, appointed by George Washington, you can look the quote up, said, "We are to select and prefer Christians to hold elected office." If you go and look at every of the 13 original states, every state constitution, they had originally had to profess Christ to hold elected office. And you guys heard me say this before. If you go through everything, when Paul Revere did his famous ride, first of all, he did not say the British are coming. They were all British. He said the British regulars were coming. But he was going to Reverend Jonas Clark's home. And who was there was John Hancock and Sam Adams. And what's so profound to me is the first 4 battles of the Revolutionary War were not fought by the National Army, George Washington and his men. With the shot heard round the world, Lexington, Concord, Boston, Road to Boston, Bunker Hill, they were not fought by the National Army. When they got there, and Paul Revere's going, "They're coming to get you guys and arrest you and kill you and all that." Reverend Jonas Clark said, me and my congregation, we got that. The first 4 battles of the Revolutionary War were fought by the church. And my point is, the church has got to get back in the battle. Because as I showed, this nation was founded by the church. The church is withdrawn. They'll talk about prayer. They don't want to talk about issues.
That's right.
Now, there are a few that do stand up. How many times has anyone heard from the pulpit that abortion's murder?
Well, this
I
church
am
almost every Sunday.
100% pro-life. Every single life is precious and created by God. We are to defend the defenseless. You know, I'm proud to have had 2 pro-life bills signed into law. And I'm telling you, I had a pastor stand, at the well debating the bill that got so upset he is spitting as he's screaming scripture at me, telling me somehow me trying to stop abortion. It's funny, the lieutenant governor of our state, Will Ainsworth, came down from the well, stood next to me. He thought the man was going to hit me. They should have called security on him. He was totally out of control, but was upset because I was fighting for the life of the defenseless. But we have got to help people that will stand up
that
and
point,
fight.
Mac, one second. I love space, right? So I'm always watching the videos and stuff. And there's life.
If they find a bacteria.
And yet, a fetus is not life.
And they have their own DNA, their own heartbeat, their own fingerprints. That's incredible, and we know they experience pain.
Yeah.
That we've got to fight for those. If you have whatever situation you can't take care of that baby, put it up for adoption.
Yep.
There are so many people that are wanting babies.
Yep.
But we've got to respect and honor life. But my point is, in America, these guys that set this thing up, and my favorite president, Thomas Jefferson, what he wanted on his tombstone was the Religious Liberties Bill. You can have freedom of and even freedom from religion in America.
Amen.
But my point is, our founders gave us the prescription. We need to get people. The men that founded this country were not perfect. They were incredible. Man, thankfully, I'm far from perfect. Thankfully, I'm covered by grace and covered by the blood, and I'm forgiven.
Yes.
But if we got people that are seeking that and get the church back in the battle instead of hiding from the fight, prayer was removed from school because the church refused to get in the battle. Abortion's legal because the church refused to get in the battle.
Yeah.
Correct.
Everything where the church is withdrawn, and I can show you where the church literally founded this nation. In the pioneer communities, one of the very first buildings was the church they built. The term, public school was first began in the church. The pastors were the most educated person in the community. They were the first teachers. The Bible was the first textbook, and it's still 100% legal to be used as a textbook today, as Bible lit or a history book. But most school systems shy away from it. The only thing is, in America, we're seeing Christianity is under assault.
Yes.
Islam, other religions are growing, but even in the secular school systems. But we need to allow a student to embrace Christianity if that's what they choose, or if they choose not to.
Correct. Yeah.
That is America. That we have personal liberties and freedoms, and I'm going to do whatever I can to ensure you have that right, where you can choose your essential and non-essential business with your voting dollars. That's what I'll decide.
Ashley Langdale says what you were trying to remember earlier was War Eagle.
My mother went to Auburn, so I can say War Eagle.
Your daughter,
and my kids went to Alabama, so I can say Roll Tide.
Speaking of your children, Morgan is saying, "Hey, Daddy." She's telling you hello. So,
hey, sweetheart, love you dearly.
One thing I got to get this across. A lot of people will say, people that are atheists or people that are not Christian or Christ followers in District 28 area, may be screaming, well, he's talking about religion. You've got to be careful, because the reality is he's fighting more for your rights than he is anything else.
Absolutely. I will fight for their freedom from.
Well, right. Yeah. And people need to understand this freedom from religion deal is not to keep the church out of the state house, is to keep the state house out of the church.
Amen. Absolutely. And that's exactly what Jefferson said.
That's exactly right. So that's
the term separation of church and state exists in no founding document. It was in a private letter between Thomas Jefferson and the Danbury Baptist in Danbury, Connecticut. And it meant the exact opposite of what Democrat Klansman Hugo Blacks from Ashland, Alabama, that was a U.S. Senator, later a Supreme Court Justice, that got the 62, 63 school prayer cases so wrong. I mean, because as I pointed out earlier, the term Sunday school comes from school being taught at church on Sunday. But public school began in the church. So there's no, don't be offended by that. It's a historical fact. Don't be offended by, they just took down Thomas Jefferson, had been standing the statue in New York City at City Hall for 200 years. The man was not perfect. But he gave us the God-inspired Declaration of Independence. Gave us he didn't write. He wrote the Declaration of Independence. He didn't write the Constitution. But the Mayflower Compact, inspired the Declaration and inspired which the Constitution is based on biblical principles.
That's right.
But these guys were incredible. History is history. It's not offensive.
No.
It is history. You know, I was actually the sponsor for the Monument Protection Act. It protects all of our civil rights monuments as well as our Confederate monuments. That's history.
Yeah.
You know, just taking it down and burning, that's what they do in these other countries. We celebrate history there. We learn from it. You know, slavery was 100% wrong. It's never right. Never.
Amen.
It's 100% wrong.
That's correct.
You know, our founders, if you read about them, they struggled with that issue. You know, there again, they were not perfect men, but we look at things through today's eyes rather than the 16th century, the 17th century, coming out, seeing what they, you know, when Columbus got here, guess what the Indians had? They had slaves. That was something that's always wrong, but that's been around. There's more slavery today in the world than ever. But, you know, at least America corrected it and fixed the problem.
Amen.
You know, all men are created equal.
Look at the camera and tell the people why they should vote for, in just 60 seconds, why they should vote for Mack Butler.
Well, if you want someone that will honestly stand up for your rights, that will study the issues and know the issues when they go to the floor and vote, I'm your guy. I've done it. I've been there, and I do not need a job. But I will be there fighting for you on every single day. You know, I was on the Board of Education for 10 years. I never missed a single meeting. So I'm real offended by people that don't show up for these jobs they're elected to do. I literally, my family would be at the beach, and I would drive back for a board meeting. It's not hard to do. I was always in Montgomery. If you're not there, you can't get things done. And one thing I see a lot of legislators skip out on are the committee meetings.
Yep.
That's actually where you give life or death to bills. It's probably more important, you know, we have too many laws to kill bills, honestly. You know, we're always passing everything under the sun, but, you know, we need some, just like you do at your kitchen table, paying bills, don't spend every penny you get. But I'm just amazed when I look back that our state, you know, has record revenue. Most people don't realize, they see the, you know, legislators arguing over $7 billion in education, $2 billion general fund. Our budget's really over $30 million a year.
Wow.
Most of that money is already earmarked, where you have no say, and the say you've got is very little, you know, through your representatives. But you need a legislator that will listen to you guys, the people that he really works for, instead of the lobbyists, you know, from the special interests. And the perfect example, I'm sad to tell you, because a lot of these guys are my friends, our entire delegation for Etowah County turned on us, stabbed us in the back, and voted. The very first vote they did, after going everywhere, knocking on doors saying, I want to be your voice in Montgomery, and 80% plus of the people were opposed to the gas tax. Their very first vote they cast, and some of which had said they would never vote for it, went down there and voted for it. You've got to have a backbone. And I was proud to be part of that small coalition under two governors that said, it's not happening here. The Senate kept passing it, but we would not even let it get to the House floor. And it was just a handful of us that were the staunch conservatives that said no. But, you know, they kept telling you, even on the gas tax they passed, they said, if we pass this, it'll go to roads and bridges.
Yeah.
Now we find out tens of millions of dollars a year goes to the port. Well, the port could get their own money. That's an important thing. It's, you know, that's positive.
Sure.
But you lied once again. Just be honest with us. Tell us, you know, people that followed me before on Facebook saw that I put every single piece of legislation on Facebook. You know, some of that wasn't comfortable because, man, it created so much work for me because people would ask so many, I'm trying to listen, but it made me know what every bill was about. You know, because people would ask you questions, but I was one of the few that would actually let you know what was going on in Montgomery, and I would continue to do that because I felt like I work for you guys. I'm down here. I might as well actually do the job. Yeah. But if you want somebody that will do it, then May 24th, I need you to back Mack.
Well, the hashtags are crazy here.
Yep.
It's pretty fantastic.
Good
Back Mack. Mack has our back. Mack attack. Miss Connie threw some hearts on there.
How about that?
That's my sweetheart there.
Hashtag hearts.
She and honestly, with everything we've ever done, you know, because Connie and I both were really involved in the school system. If someone had ever told me I'd have been, you know, on the Board of Education or in the legislature, I would have laughed at you. But when Morgan started at John Jones, which is an incredible school, you know, we got really involved. If you walk down the halls there and see all the light fixtures and the city they created, I literally would go in there at night and wire that stuff, and I would set the alarm and lock the door. Connie was a room mother there. And of course, with 4 kids, we felt like we needed to be involved. But, I became the PTSO president for years. And then Connie and I both did it at the middle school and raised all kinds of money and did things. But that's how I was involved. And in 2002, some people were like, we really want you to run for the Board of Education. It's funny, Etowah County was a very Democrat county, and I'm like, I'm a Republican. And people told me there's no way you'll win. But the people elected me. I was the only Republican contest in the entire county that won that year. But that got me kind of in this thinking and doing, and I was minding my own business, serving as your Board of Education member. 10 years later, I get a phone call from Blaine Gallagher telling me he's fixing to announce his resignation, and he said, I want you to run. And I said, absolutely. It's funny, people from Montgomery started calling me to recruit me the next day, and I laughed and said, I'm already running. They didn't know, that I had heads up,
Right.
but I was already involved in going. I just felt like that's what I was supposed to be doing. And honest to goodness, because Connie will tell you, I don't need another job, but honest to goodness, feel led to do this. And I will fight for you and know the passion. But I'll listen to you, and if I'm wrong, I'll tell you. Put my hat in my hand and say, Jeff, man, I really was wrong with this. Just like our mayor and council in Gadsden needs to do with the rendering plant. We're going to forgive them if they'll do it. Sure. We may not forget it for a little bit, but the rendering plant has got to stop.
Yeah.
And I think it's funny the way you're probably going to see everybody all of a sudden that wasn't against the rendering plant probably election time jump on and be against it suddenly.
Sure.
But we were there, and if it's still going on, I promise you, I was a successful legislator. I will sponsor legislation to keep that from happening again.
Got a
like
lot
that.
of folks that are getting ready to run for office in Etowah County that are banking their whole campaign off of this stop the rendering plant thing, and that's good. Do what you got to do. I mean, but
I just
there's-
hope they
there's
were
more
involved
to
in
it.
that.
Yeah,
there is a
there's
lot.
a lot more to
Absolutely.
it than
It's
that.
just more personal to those of us that live,
Sure,
Atala and Rainbow
absolutely.
City right here, because that's, I know it's Gadsden, but it's
yeah.
part of,
No
the
doubt.
Camp Seibert. And
So before we
Yes, sir.
get out of here, Mac, how can people back your campaign? What sites can they go to? How can they get a check to you? What can they do? How can they
Well,
get a sign?
the easiest way is we will have our Facebook page up and going. We're going to do an announcement today, and we'll get a Mac, our website back up, and we'll have all that. But right this minute, we're not there. But I'm easy to find. You're limited to 5,000 friends. I've got thousands of followers on Facebook. But my personal Facebook page is one of the easiest ways to communicate with me, and that's where I got more interaction. My cell phone number is on my Facebook page, but you can call Butler Electric.
Yep.
But I'm easy to find, and people will tell you that I do answer my phone, and I call you back. Texting is one of the best ways in the world. It's 256-312-3128. But when I was in Montgomery, probably more people communicated with me on Facebook. I even had a lot of media that would contact me that way. It's funny, the power of social media, and you guys remember back when it was on a Thursday that some police officers in Dallas were ambushed.
Yes.
The next morning, Lee Harrison called me, a Rainbow City resident and former police officer, and he said, "Matt, we need to do something about that." And so at 10 a.m. on that Friday morning, I put on Facebook that we, the people, were going to peacefully assemble that same day, that night, at Rainbow City Hall, and we were going to lay hands and pray on our first responders.
Right.
And I'm amazed that I put it on there at 10 a.m. It was shared hundreds of times. And if you guys remember, we had so many police cars. We had every law enforcement agency in this county was represented. We had state police there. We had people out of the county. But we literally, I spoke. We had some pastors that spoke. But we literally gathered all our first responders, laid hands and prayed on them. But my point was with social media, that's how powerful it is. We had 4 TV stations there. We weren't on the radio. We weren't on TV. I literally at 10 a.m. did a post that we were going to do it. And I'm just amazed at the community. That's why Connie and I are so thrilled to invest in our community. And I will dare say you won't find another politician that has invested what Connie have invested all over, whether it's Gadsden, Atala, Rainbow City, Southside. We are everywhere, literally improving our community one project at a time. And the proof is in the pudding.
That's
We're
true.
there.
That's
We put pictures of our things we're doing. We don't put them all, but we put most of them on there.
I know more importantly, you would covet people's prayers.
Absolutely, we need to. I want first of all make sure I'm in God's will. You know, I think I'm going the right way because I really, if you would have asked me, I really thought I was going to run for the state senate, and just all of a sudden in the last few weeks, as we were waiting, we polled the state senate back at the end of the summer. I won Etowah County last time. I clearly won Etowah County. I got whipped in Cherokee County. We didn't know where the new district was, so we couldn't do that. Trying to get all that data and analyze it and then poll it. My plan was to poll the state house because I told everybody all along I was either going to run for the House or the Senate, and I didn't know what district I was going to be in. And then, but we literally had gotten our House polling done, didn't get to the Senate because all those other doors opened, and then my friend Mike Shannon jumping up, which is a good candidate for the Senate, that I'll be backing him. That, you know, Etowah County needs to hold the Senate. That's just simple. We need to have that Senate seat.
I bet he was at John Moore's table, if I'm guessing. Oh, sorry. We got to close this up.
Probably true. Mack, thank you so much.
Thank you guys for having me. It's great to hang out with the cool kids as always.
Well, Jerry's the only cool one at this table.
I'm fat. There's no way
Well,
I'm
there
cool.
it is. There it is. Hey, stay close, stay clean, and look, love each other like you're supposed to love each other. The Word of God teaches us to do that, and I'm telling you, you'll be far better off if you do. Check out #BackMack. You can check his Facebook information is right here in the comments on the page. You can look at Kapow, and we have Mack tagged in several different things. He's very easy to find. Give him a call or text him at 256-312-3128. He'll always take your call. He always takes ours. And when we call him, we always just need a scissor lift. So he always takes our call. Mack, thank you again.
Thank you guys for having me.